Hello everyone, I'm Nicole Theodosiou and I chair Professional Development and Education here at SDB. It's my honor to introduce, actually it's always my biggest honor to introduce the winner of the Viktor Hamburger Prize at the annual meeting. The Viktor Hamburger Prize for Education recognizes individuals who have made outstanding contributions to education in developmental biology or related fields. This year's winners have truly made outstanding and innovative contributions to teaching and learning. I am thrilled to introduce this year's winners, Alana O'Reilly and Dara Ruiz-Whalen from the Fox Chase Cancer Institute for their incredible work on eClose Institute. So in eClose, 1 minute, I have another minute. In eClose, middle and high school students reflect on their own community and health challenges, and then learn how to identify genetic drivers of these specific challenges, such as cancer or diabetes, using the fruit fly as a model. In this way, they foster curiosity, and to quote Alana, get students excited about research through their own ideas and not other people's ideas. Dara Ruiz-Whalen is a science educator and the Chief Learning Officer and Executive Director of the eClose Institute. Alana O'Reilly is an Associate Professor at the Fox Chase Cancer Center and Chief Scientific Officer and Executive Director of the eClose Institute. Together, they have impacted the lives of over 1,000 students in the Philadelphia area with rich research experiences, and they've received numerous awards and grants in support of their mission, including the Elizabeth W. Jones Award for Excellence in Education from the Genetics Society, second place in the Milk and Pen Business Plan Competition, hats off there, and our recent several recipients of the 3 different SDB education grants from 2016 to 2018. So it's my honor to award the Viktor Hamburger Outstanding Education Prize to Alana O'Reilly and Dara Ruiz-Whalen.
Yeah, so this is a huge honor for me. The SDB was not the first society I joined. I was first a member of the AACR, but the SDB was the first society where I actually felt like I belonged someplace. And this is something that's been the hard work of many people here. I want to particularly perhaps get on your feet for Ida Chow, who has created this incredibly integrative society. She has been a role model for me in particular because she is fierce, she tells the truth, and she doesn't put up with any crap. So that's what we try to do in our programs too. So these are all the past winners of this award. And you can see the who's who on this slide, which is both intimidating and inspiring for us as we start off on our journey to try to make an influence on science education as the babies in this, in this area. So going off of that theme of babies, we have 2 basic principles that we start all our programs with. The first one is that we're all born scientists. And so, each one of us is born with the ability to survive. And how do we do that? We do that with curiosity, problem solving, investigation, experimentation, and conclusion. And so every child that we know is actually born as a scientist. And then what happens? We go to school. It gets very quickly erased. So here you have an actual published study done by Microsoft where girls really drop off in terms of their scientific interest in 8th grade. By the time they're 17 and graduating from high school, it's nearly gone. So we, in the Philadelphia School District, have a very challenging situation where this already happens by grade 3. So this was a program that we conducted a few weeks ago. We surveyed the students by saying, who loves science? And the 3rd graders went, oh, can we go in the pool? Right, so none of them wanted to do science, but the kindergartners were going into grade 1 were super excited about it. So we have already lost these kids already by grade 3. So how do we fix it? How do we reignite that innate scientific ability that they started with? So this was the same program. These were the same kids who said, I would rather go in the pool. After 4 days of doing actual research on junk food versus healthy food, making their own conclusions, and you can see their happy face or sad face, depending on whether they would recommend that nutrient to, or the food to their families. They reignited the context, curiosity, learning, questioning, predicting by investigating, analyzing, concluding, and now they wanted to educate their communities about what they learned. So they've completely flipped. I don't want to do science because that's what's in school. I want to do research. So our second principle is that food is everything. And I actually mean that. So food is like a foundation of all religions. It is something that is deeply cultural, deeply meaningful for every culture. It's how we celebrate. It's how we interact. It is thought to be the way to a person's heart through their stomach. And it is also widely used for medicine. And so this is something that everybody can connect with. You are what you eat. And every single person, regardless of their background, science, no science, or hate of science, can relate to. So we're really very interested in using diet to unlock health. And so this is the current FDA recommended plate, which everybody knows and not very many people eat. And so the idea here is that my research lab studies stem cells, which are implicated in this aging process and are dramatically impacted by feeding. And so what we would rather have, instead of this like march from birth until you're dead here in the grave, is that we would rather have a society that can actually live there every minute of their life in joy. And so, so what we developed in 2013 was this concept of kids conquering cancer. So we have 60 million high school students in the United States and 550 million worldwide. There are over 1 million individual nutrients in the food we eat and over 300 cancer genes. So our idea was that if the students start to bring in, this is what I eat, this is what I think is healthy, this is what I think is not healthy, and having them investigate how this impacted signaling pathways that are modeled in the fruit fly, that we could actually create a global map of how these nutrients impact signal transduction. And so we did this instead of by doing this as a hierarchical system, which our scientific culture currently exists as, where some brilliant person gives somebody else their brilliance and expects them to turn into them. Instead, so what happens when you do this, which weeding classes, we can talk about that a lot later, this is what happens. You weed out everybody and you only get the flowers that are just like you. So we don't want that. That's not diversity. We would rather have the students tell us what's important and then facilitate their own research, basically nurturing a seed to turn into new ideas. And so in this way, somebody has an idea, plants a seed in somebody else, and it becomes reciprocal instead of hierarchical. So how do we actually do this? We have a bunch of dietary supplements. The students sometimes go in their fridge and pull out their grandmom's tea. We feed it to flies that bearing oncogenes, tumor suppressor genes, any disease model. Lately, mental health is a big issue, so we use dopamine, serotonin mutants. And then we investigate the developmental process in flies to see whether there's a change in phenotype. And so the goal is to basically use this to reverse map the chemical targets for each nutrient based on this protein map of the Drosophila. So the screen is actually fairly reproducible. We use a pupil lethality screen, and you can see here, you can see dramatic differences in survival between mutants and individual pathways. And we've used this to identify alterations that are caused by nutrients as well. So just as a quick, how does this all work? This is my main research lab on the left side, and the high school students who came in saying a lot of people in Philadelphia are dying from a preventable disease with a vaccine, which is cervical cancer. And so the team on the right decided we need to do something about this. And remarkably, my lab studies quiescence to proliferation transitions of epithelial stem cells in response to feeding, which is mediated by hedgehog signaling. And the students came in with this driving need, urgent driving need to do something about HPV. So HPV affects a protein called RB, and RB happens to control quiescence to proliferation transitions, creating an incredible, a convergence story of what the high school students need to what the lab was doing. So basically, this is a slide from the MIT hackathon where they bring in thousands of students to basically write new code to address problems in the world. And so what we're looking for with all of you, my lab was interested in RB. Now we have students, hackers, who are interested in RB. I'm the host. Okay, so these students are connected to the community and can transmit all of this new professional learning that they've learned back into the community, while we can get more information from the community through these students to broaden our research questions and make higher impact. And so if you're a host who wants a hacker who's interested in the same kinds of problems that you study in your lab, and you can provide a safe environment for the students to thrive, we're interested in chatting.
All right, we're going to make a quick pivot, and I'm just going to quickly also thank Ida Chow because she welcomed me as an educator into the world of developmental biology, and you'll see a little bit of a thank you kind of hidden in one of my slides as well. So when we're talking about eClose and we're talking about empowering all these young scientists who we already saw lose interest very, very early, coming from an area like Philadelphia, what we're looking at is a completely flipped dichotomy on the students that are in our school district, comparing it to what we see as the U.S. Version of the faculty representatives in research science. So we're trying to empower all of our students in Philly to see themselves in the role of scientist by giving them the opportunity to explore things that are health concerns in their communities, their homes, their schools, their neighborhoods, their churches. We are looking at students that want to tackle problems that aren't being reached by the current research. Things like COVID and cancer. Diabetes is rampant in Philadelphia, almost 77% higher in underrepresented minorities, and including things like mental health disparities like Alzheimer's. So when we look at some of the numbers, those are some of our graduates of our programs on the side. We are looking at a drastically awful number of students that switch out of STEM majors once they enter college. Those weeding classes that we all know about, they are crippling to these students. We're looking at the flip side in looking at the Immersion Science program, which was our initial program. 72% of our students go into college and are able to do research in laboratories. They are walking into research opportunities because they are prepared. 6% of inner city students really look at, this very low number of them completing their STEM degrees. They're the ones that are hanging in there, and only 10% of those complete graduate degrees in science and research fields. 100% of Immersion Science inner city students that have graduated from our training programs do complete their STEM degrees, and they do it on time. We have developed a citizen science staircase of discovery. eClose and Immersion Science are not a one-size-fits-all. We meet you at the level that you are coming in to do your research, and we always have something more for you. And if that more at the very pinnacle of that staircase isn't with us, we help identify hosts. Please give us your contact information, where they can go and continue their research at advanced degree institutions. So you can see that we are not just doing a crowdsourcing where our citizen scientists in high schools and middle schools and now in grade schools are just going out and making observations and reporting them back through a digital format. They're actually at the top point where they are bringing the questions to the table in their classrooms and telling their teachers and telling us at eClose what they want to research and what the impact is, because as soon as that ownership and that empowerment is there, the drive to understand and conquer these awful diseases is going to be reached. How do we do it? How do we scale? When we first started our program, it was 16 students in a laboratory designated just for that process. That's a very, very small number. And we needed to find a way of doing it. And the educator and me said, hey, what if we reached out to the teachers? Can we train teachers who hadn't had this training prior to now to bring it into their classrooms and reach hundreds and hundreds of students per teacher per year? And so this is where we started on our journey in 2013, starting to train teachers in these labs. And each time we did, our community grew a little bit. In 2017, I was invited to give a talk at SDB, and somebody pulled me aside very forcefully and said, "Why have you not submitted a grant to teach these teachers how to do this?" And I'm like, so I submitted a grant. I was super excited and got to work with these 10 amazing individuals for a week in a research lab. The majority, I think 80 to 90% of them, are still doing our programs in their classrooms. And as eClose, we launched our very first virtual professional development for teachers because of COVID, and we were able to do this with teachers all over the Philadelphia area. So what happens? 2016, we started training teachers. We had 2 classrooms, 2 schools, and we had 65 students. Whoops, that was somebody, you warned us that this was touchy. So by 2018, we had grown to 220 students doing this in classrooms, and between 2013 and 2019 as Immersion Science, we were in 19 high schools with 24 teachers, over 1,000 students from underrepresented minority backgrounds, 18 cancer hits, 20,000 education data points, and over 4,000 plus experimental data points. And this was our student scientists presenting at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. All right, so why does it work? So eClose, as we go out into these schools, we align with all of the state standards. Some of you, if you have children, if you come through the school system relatively recently, you may know about Next Generation Science Standards and GSS. Teachers are really put upon to have to meet these standards of excellence for their students to graduate, to pass AP exams, to pass Keystones, to pass PSSAs. Pennsylvania is riddled with standardized tests. So eClose works with these teachers, and we were actually an awardee, and we were able to build over 12 research laboratories in Philadelphia schools. So we did not hand them a curriculum and said, "Hey, here, good luck." We actually formatted and contributed to their classrooms. So these teachers each received that kit that you see. And once that happened and the training was completed, those teachers actually took it upon themselves to now become the principal investigators and scientists in their classrooms, leading projects that their students were personally engaged in. Citizen science training takes many forms. A lot of people do these outreach programs and say, well, you know, I have this thing, it works, it's professional development. And, you know, I've read a lot of papers on that, and a lot of times it's kind of a one-size-fits-all. There's some change. But you can see that citizen scientist training has to take many forms. You have to be able to flex your program to meet the teachers you want to work with. People say, where do you find them? We don't find them. The people that are part of our synergistic group find us, and we continue to work together as a community and as partners, not as a system where we are trying to give them their curriculum. Science teachers are scientists. For too many years, this has been siloed. I am very fortunate to work with an amazing scientist who is also an awesome educator. It took me a really long time to tell people, nope, I'm not a scientist, and hopefully she doesn't throw my award at my head. So I am a scientist, as are the science teachers. They are the PIs in their classroom, being mentors and not just striving towards a grade for their students, but they are also now seen as experts in Philadelphia's community at conferences and at meetings, and they have coined the phrase for themselves and call themselves teacher scientists. 3 years, eClose, 2020 to 2023, we have added an additional 2,500 students to our research community. We have been represented in over 20 states across the country, worked with over 14 comprehensive cancer centers, 12 we built over 12 research labs that have been placed into Philadelphia schools, and our program runs from kindergarten all the way through adult and workforce development. So we ask again our students, who wants to be a scientist? Well, all the raised hands now. And so, are we all born scientists? Yes. And there was a placard out that said, you know, I get to work with my favorite scientists. Well, I got to train some of mine. And here are some of the most amazing young scientists that I hope you all have the pleasure to work with eventually. And with that, there they all go. Yay! I don't want to cover up Devin in the center, right? Whew. So, thank you all. And Please note, we do have a space for your logo in the center, so we look forward to hearing from you.